Hey everybody, it's Emily Parker with RE/MAX Executive here, and I am going to talk to you about how to stay out of court as a seller. So to get started, I just want to say that disclosures are the #1 reason why sellers go to court. If you don't disclose everything that you're aware of about the property, that leaves you at risk of going to court. Let me just give you an example. I had a client, a buyer, purchase a house. It was perfect. There was no major issues with it. And after they moved in, they started finding like major caked bird poop on the sidewalks. They were these birds in their front tree were just like squawking, and at all hours of the night they were dropping fish and crabs on the lawn, which is not normal for Modesto area. And so after talking to their neighbors, they found out that there was actually a protected bird species in a little bubble where they lived, and legally they could not remove the tree because that would be destroying the bird's habitat. And yeah, it was like a huge nuisance. And we reviewed the disclosures again after we closed escrow to see if the sellers had communicated that, and they didn't. There's a box that was checked, and it specifically asks if there's any like protected species or wildlife or anything, and that box was checked no. Now, when talking to the neighbors, because that's where it always begins, the neighbors, they said, yes, like we know for a fact that these sellers knew about it. There were conversations about it, and my buyers actually started to pursue taking them to court because it was, I mean, it really affected their lives for like a solid year. A bird even pooped on one of the boys' heads. Like it was just, and it was just their, yes, anyways, it was a whole thing. I have another story. I had some sellers who, about 5 years prior to selling, their house flooded with sewage. One of the toilets backed up and overflowed with sewage, and about 2 feet of wall along the whole house had to be removed because of damage. And thankfully their insurance took care of it. The problem was fixed as far as they were aware, and it never happened again. Fast forward to, a couple years ago, we were going to list the house, filling out disclosures together, and they asked me about it, and they asked if they should put it in the disclosures, even though it was kind of at that border of technically the questionnaire on the disclosures, it was borderline, like they might have been able to leave it off. But I said, you know what, if you're asking the question, put it on there because it's better safe than sorry. So they did. They put that whole incident on the disclosures in detail. Well, we sold the house, and the house was was vacant for about a month before the buyers moved in. The buyers moved in, they had some kids, so that bathroom got used a lot more than it had been used in a long time. And they had the same exact issue. The toilet overflowed with sewage and it flooded the entire house. So they had to throw away furniture. They had to take out the walls about 2 feet up. I mean, the same exact thing that happened to my clients happened to them. And which is obviously a complete nightmare. But when they tried to come at my sellers, they took it to their attorney and everything. And because we had disclosed that the same issue had happened 5 years prior, my sellers were exempt, and there was no touching them. And I also included it in my agent visual inspection disclosure just to be, over the top. But because I did that, I was protected from being sued as well. So it's just, it's really important to disclose everything. I have so many other stories, but those are my 2 big ones. So as a seller, when you're filling out that paperwork, if your realtor is not sitting down with you and filling those out with you, you have a problem, because we're the ones, we are the professional. It's our job to inform you and educate you and make sure that you are filling out this legal documentation correctly. And documents, legal, you know what I mean? Anyways, so if you are not getting guidance, maybe find someone else to work with, because this is going to keep you out of court. And you know what? I'm going to be honest. I've had a buyer purchase a house, and we found out after we moved in, or after my clients moved in, after conversation with the neighbors, we found out that the house had been occupied by the seller's son, who had like drugs and all this crazy stuff happening, and the house got raided by SWAT and the son was in jail, and there's just all this information that just conveniently wasn't in the disclosures, right? And again, it started with conversation with neighbors. Before we closed escrow, we actually found out through some investigation on our side, we found out some items that were not included in the disclosures that should have been. And the agent said she went over the reports and the paperwork with the seller. So, I mean, I'm just gonna throw out there, like, even if you have somebody working with you, just be hypersensitive to, you know, oh, don't include that, or don't, if you ever hear don't include that, like, that's a red flag, because if you want to stay out of court, I would disclose everything. I had a seller type up a separate document just listing every single thing that they could possibly remember happened to the house, because, you know, even though the house was it was like close to perfect, they were just paranoid about being taken to court because they've heard the horror stories, and you know, it's better safe than sorry. So anyways, I'm boring you with all of these stories, but if you want more stories, I got them for you. But really the important thing to know is, if you even think, I wonder if this should be in the disclosures, just put it in there. If there's not a line for it, then you can have an addendum created. You can just write up your own document to have the buyer sign, whatever your agent suggests in your situation. But just know that disclosures are the way to stay out of court, the main way. There's other ways, but that's just the one that we're going to talk about today. So I hope you hope that helps. And if you have any questions, I'm here to talk. Yeah, have a great day, you guys.